Stephanie White caught on camera yelling at Caitlin Clark. Her and Caitlin having another damn exchange. Let's blow it up. Let's listen.
Stephanie White is catching heat from all directions right now, and Caitlin Clark's army of fans is leading the charge. This wasn't just a loss, this was a coaching performance that went completely sideways, and everybody watching could see exactly who was responsible for it. The Indiana Fever faithful has been raising red flags about this coaching approach for months, and last night that blowout put every single concern on full display for the entire country to witness. And what makes this moment hit even harder is the timing. This was not supposed to be the kind of game the Fever lost like this. Not with this roster. Not with this star. Not with this much national attention on every single move this franchise makes. And yet, here we are, watching the same problems that plagued this team last season show up again under the exact same coaching staff making the exact same decisions that got them into trouble in the first place. The fan base did not forget. They never forgot. And last night brought everything flooding back all at once. When your best player is arguably the most electric offensive weapon the league has ever seen, and she is still walking off the floor on the wrong end of a blowout, the question everybody should be asking is, what exactly is this coaching staff doing to put Caitlin Clark in a position to succeed? Because a player of her caliber does not just lose games like this without a reason. And that reason has a name. When the scheme is wrong, when the rotations are wrong, when the adjustments never come, and when the person sitting on that bench with the clipboard keeps making the same reads that keep putting this team in impossible situations, the star player pays the price every single time. That is not bad luck. That is not the opponent being better. That is a coaching problem. A systemic, recurring, impossible-to-ignore coaching problem that this organization has refused to address with any real sense of urgency. And last night, Caitlin Clark paid the full price for that refusal, while the coaching staff walked away without a single consequence for any of it. Here is why Clark's fan base completely erupted after this performance, and why every single bit of that anger is completely justified. Because this reaction goes way deeper than one bad night, and anybody trying to dismiss it as overreaction is completely missing the point. This is a fan base that has watched closely, paid attention, and kept every single receipt from every single disappointing moment this coaching staff has produced. They are not reacting emotionally without basis. They are pointing at a pattern. They are pointing at a system that keeps failing the most important player this franchise has ever had, and keeps doing it in ways that are painfully visible to anyone paying attention. The decisions being made on that sideline are not building toward anything. They are not developing this roster. They are not maximizing what Caitlin Clark brings to the floor every single night. And last night, the whole country watched that system fail in real time on a national stage with no excuses left to hide behind. Stephanie White and this entire coaching staff have been given every resource, every opportunity, and every benefit of the doubt this fan base had left to give. Last night, they ran out of all three. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And now things have gone to a completely different level because there is video evidence on the table. This is not speculation anymore. This is not fans reading between the lines, or analysts trying to connect dots from press conference body language. This is an actual on-camera moment between Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark that has been captured, zoomed in on, and broken down frame by people across the internet. And what that footage appears to show is a head coach who is not just frustrated with a basketball game, but is directing that frustration directly at the one player on this roster who least deserves to have it pointed her way. The reaction from Clark in that moment tells you everything you need to know. When a player of that caliber responds the way she did on that sideline, when someone who competes as hard as Caitlin Clark visibly checks out of a conversation mid-sentence and turns away, that is not a player being dramatic. That is a player who has heard enough. And the fact that the coaching staff did not seem to realize or care that cameras were rolling makes this entire moment even more damning for the organization.
Stephanie White caught on camera yelling at Caitlin Clark. Her and Caitlin having another damn exchange. Let's blow it up. Let's listen. let's watch this, right? So let's watch it again. Stephanie White is laying it on Caitlyn. Like, this is all Caitlyn's fault when you took her out in the first damn quarter that went on a 13-2 run. How the hell remotely is this Caitlyn Clark fault? Look at this. And look, Caitlyn throws her hands up, and Caitlyn's like, okay. Look, Caitlyn threw her hands up and said, okay, and shook her head. Is she saying fuck? Is she cursing? Now, Stephanie White quickly looks around, right? So if you watch her body language, right? Look. So Stephanie White trying to calm down, like, oh, snaps, cameras could be out. Somebody's going to catch this. Look at this. She chewing on gum. Oh my God, this is so fucking bad, guys. I mean, they can't even cover this up. They're clearly...
Now, the questions that every single person watching this clip has to be sitting with are the ones that nobody inside that building wants to answer publicly. How does a head coach look at a performance like that? A performance where the roster she constructed and the decisions she made on the sideline contributed directly to the outcome, and then turn around and put any portion of that on Caitlyn Clark? What exactly was said in that exchange? And perhaps most importantly, if this is what the relationship between the head coach and the franchise player looks like when the cameras accidentally catch it, what does it look like behind closed doors when nobody is watching? Because the body language visible in that footage does not look like a coach and a player who are aligned, motivated by the same goals, and building towards something together. It looks like a fracture. And fractures that start this early in a season have a way of becoming canyons by the time the stakes are highest. The answer that this footage seems to be pointing toward is one that should genuinely alarm every single person who has invested emotionally and financially into watching this team succeed. When accountability inside an organization flows in only one direction, when the player who is doing everything right keeps absorbing the frustration of the people around her who are not, that organization is operating with a broken internal culture. Caitlyn Clark did not blow that lead. Caitlyn Clark did not construct this roster. Caitlyn Clark did not draw up the rotations or make the substitution decisions that left this team exposed at the worst possible moments. And yet there she is on camera, on the receiving end of an exchange that no franchise player should ever have to navigate on a public sideline. The fan base saw it. The league saw it. And now there is a video that is not going anywhere. And if you thought the first piece of footage was bad, what just got surfaced makes that look like a minor disagreement. Because now there is a second angle, a second moment, and a second instance of Stephanie White directing what appears to be an explosive and completely unprofessional outburst directly at one of her own players on that sideline. And this time the details being pulled from that footage are even more specific and even more alarming than anything that came before it. We are not talking about a coach getting animated during a tight game in the fourth quarter. We are not talking about a frustrated sideline moment that could be explained away by competitive intensity and high-stakes basketball. We are talking about a head coach who appears to have completely lost her composure, directed language at a player that has absolutely no place in any professional environment, and then made a substitution in the immediate aftermath that looks less like a basketball decision and more like a power move designed to send a message. And the reaction from people who have watched this footage frame by frame is not subtle. It was a shock. Pure, unfiltered shock that this is happening in broad daylight with cameras present and no attempt whatsoever to keep it contained.
Church get up for Raven Johnson, aka benching her. This coach left CC on the island 2 games in a row due to Liberty. Liberty do that to Sabrina. Dallas do that to Paige. No. Stephanie White yelling at Caitlyn Clark about defense like she's the problem. CC says, Bays, I'm going straight up. What else you want me to do? Stephanie White said, F out of my face. I'm putting Raven Johnson in. Wow. I knew it looked like she cursed. Let's look. Look, y'all. We got to watch this again. I'm going live about this tomorrow. We're definitely going live about this tomorrow. Did she say get the fuck? Bro, she said it. And she threw her clipboard. Hold on, guys. Hold on, here you go. And so she calls for a Raven. Hold on. I'm trying to see. Wow, bro. Tell me I'm tripping. Tell me it looked like she told Caitlin Clark to get the F out of her face, bro. Wow.
The questions that this clip is going to force every single viewer to confront are the ones this organization is completely unprepared to answer right now. How does a coaching staff that is already under this much scrutiny, already fighting this much public criticism, already operating with this little goodwill left from the fan base, allow something like this to play out on a visible sideline without any awareness that the whole world is watching? How does a head coach rationalize directing that kind of energy at a player and then pulling her from the game in the same breath, as if the substitution itself is the punctuation mark on the confrontation? And the comparison that is impossible to ignore once you see this footage is the one fans are already making out loud across every platform. Would this happen to the franchise players of other organizations? Would the stars being built around elsewhere ever be treated this way by their coaching staff on a public sideline? Because the answer to that question is painfully obvious, and it makes what happened in this clip look even worse by comparison. What this footage ultimately reveals is something far more serious than a coach having a bad night or a sideline moment getting slightly out of hand. It reveals a coaching environment where the person at the top is operating without the emotional discipline that leading a professional roster demands, particularly when that roster includes the most scrutinized and most valuable player in the entire league right now. When a head coach loses that kind of composure in that kind of moment and responds by immediately removing the player from the game, it does not read as a tactical adjustment, it reads as retaliation. And when players, fans, and the broader basketball world all watch that sequence play out and arrive at the same conclusion independently, the coaching staff does not get to walk that back with a press conference answer or a carefully worded statement. The footage exists, the reaction speaks for itself. And the Indiana Fever organization now has a problem that goes so far beyond wins and losses that basketball has almost become secondary to the culture crisis unfolding in plain sight. And here is where the entire situation stops being a coaching debate and becomes something much more serious and much harder for this organization to contain. Because the numbers do not lie and the footage does not lie. And when you put both of them together in the same conversation, the picture they paint is absolutely devastating for Stephanie White and everyone defending her decisions inside that building. The player who got pulled from that game in that heated sideline moment went on to produce in the minutes she was given. The player who replaced her produced a fraction of that output in nearly half the time on the floor. So the basketball did not justify the decision. The results did not validate the substitution, which means what we witnessed in that footage was not a tactical adjustment made by a sharp coaching mind reading the game in real time. It was something else entirely. And the internet has watched it, broken it down, shared it, and is now arriving at a conclusion that this organization cannot spin its way out no matter how carefully worded their next public statement turns out to be. The momentum shift that followed that substitution did not just hurt the Fever in that moment, it potentially defined the entire trajectory of the game, and the head coach who made that call owns every single point of that run.
White actually emoted during the same game because she sure didn't when we were getting curious calls. Whoa, I'm speechless, bro. She's been taking her incompetent out on Caitlin Clark. Yes, bro. Yes, what is this right here? Whatever Stephanie White said, she was wrong. This is how we know that for sure. So what's the stat line? 22 minutes, 6 points. Raven Johnson, 10 minutes, 3 points. Oh, my God. Wow, bro. Stephanie White gotta get fired, bro. Ain't no shaking this one, bro. This is bad as hell, guys. This is so bad, and it's slowly going viral on Twitter, bro. This is very, very fucking bad. This is horrendous right now. Just horrendous, bro. Like, I am speechless over this right now. Wow, bro. They cannot do no more pre-R stuff covering this up. You took Caitlin Clark out the game. They went on a 13-2 run. You never recovered from that. That is your fault, Stephanie. You killed any momentum that the Fever might have had. You demolished it. You destroyed it. And you're destroying the locker room before our eyes. Guys, they're going to try to wipe this video off the internet. They're going to wipe this. They're going to try everything in their power to get rid of this video because there has been a growing notion.
The questions that are now spreading faster than this organization can manage them are the ones that cut right to the heart of whether this coaching staff is sustainable going forward. If the emotion visible in that sideline moment was genuine and unfiltered, where was that same energy when this team was getting carved apart by questionable officiating, by defensive breakdowns, by every other problem that surfaced during that game? Why does it appear that the most animated and emotionally charged moment from the head coach during that entire performance was directed inward at her own player rather than outward at the circumstances working against her team? And the question underneath all of that, the one that the fan base is now asking at full volume, is whether what the internet has been quietly whispering about for months regarding the relationship between this head coach and this franchise player is actually far more true than anyone inside that organization has been willing to publicly admit. The answer that this footage and these numbers are forcing everyone to confront is that accountability inside this program appears to be flowing in exactly the wrong direction. A head coach who is presiding over a blowout loss, who is making substitution decisions that probably hurt her team's momentum, and who is visibly directing her frustration at the player least responsible for the situation on that floor, is a head coach who has lost perspective entirely. And when the statistical evidence directly contradicts the reasoning behind the decision, when the player removed outperformed the player inserted by every relevant measure, the argument that this was purely a basketball call collapses completely. What is left when that argument collapses is a credibility problem, a culture problem, and a trust problem that no practice, no film session, and no press conference answer is going to resolve. The fan base is not going to forget this. The footage is not disappearing, and the Indiana Fever organization is running out of time to get ahead of a story that is already completely out of their control. The Indiana Fever are standing at a crossroads right now, and every single person watching knows it. This is not a rebuilding team. This is not a franchise with nothing to lose. This is an organization built around the most marketable, most talented, most watched player in women's basketball, and they are burning through whatever goodwill and credibility they have left one sideline moment at a time. The footage exists. The numbers exist. The pattern exists. And until this organization makes a decision that reflects how seriously they understand what is at stake, nothing changes. Caitlin Clark deserves better than this. The fan base deserves better than this. And the entire league is watching to see whether the Fever have the courage to actually do something about it. Hit that subscribe button right now because we are not letting this go.